Hi, my name is Chelsey, and today we're going to be talking about your post-op diet. So the post-op diet is the diet that you'll follow after you have bariatric surgery. The diet is an 8-week progression. We start you out on liquids and gradually add in different textures of foods until we kind of lift those restrictions around week 8. So the most important thing here is that we're trying to make sure that your stomach is healing, especially during that first 2 weeks. And we want to make sure that we're not introducing anything too quickly so that we can help your stomach get used to those things after surgery again. So the first 24 to 48 hours of your diet is going to be what we call clear liquids. In your handouts, there is a list of all of the accepted liquids that you can have, but primarily you'll be drinking water, broth, decaf tea and coffee, and then maybe some type of like a Gatorade Zero or Propel water. Our goal here is just to keep you hydrated. So we want to get in that 64 ounces of liquids every day and make sure that you're staying away from caffeine, carbonation, and sugar. After you've done that diet for the first day or two, then you're going to switch to full liquids. So full liquids is going to be days 2 through 14 after surgery. And what this is, it's those thicker, more creamy substances. So during this phase, you can add your protein shakes. You can add things like yogurt. You can also do other creamy items like cream soups as long as you strain out the chunks. You can also do milks or alternative milks like almond milk. Again, just make sure you're staying away from carbonation, caffeine, and sugar. I'll say it again just because it's super important. For the first 2 weeks especially, your primary focus is hydration. So if you need to make a choice between getting in your fluids or getting in your protein, please choose your fluids. And then also if you start developing lactose intolerance, like if you're noticing you're having some gas or bloating, maybe diarrhea or cramping after having something to drink, check into those protein shakes and see if cutting out the lactose will help. That is something that can be developed after surgery is lactose intolerance. And then as well, for this first 2 weeks after surgery, you shouldn't have any chunks in anything that you're drinking. So if you are having a soup, for example, make sure that you strain out any chicken, vegetables, noodles, rice, or anything that might be in there and just drink the liquid portion. As well, if you want to avoid using a straw, that can help by not adding extra air into the stomach to cause any discomfort. So if you're able to stay hydrated without the straw, cut out the straws for 2 weeks. If you're very tired of the sweet flavor of protein shakes and yogurts and Gatorade Zeros and things like that, you're welcome to add your unflavored protein powder into something a little bit more savory so that you can kind of move away from the sweet and get a little bit different taste. Be as consistent as you possibly can with your schedule. Try not to get too far behind on your fluids or even your protein intake. And if you even need to, make sure you're setting timers, every 15 minutes or so to help you remember to take a drink. And then tracking your food, or I guess your drinks at this point, tracking those with the app can also help you to know how close you are to getting in your fluids and getting in your protein. Okay, next phase of the diet is your soft protein diet. This is going to be weeks 3 and 4 after surgery. Essentially what we're doing here, any food that has protein content, so primarily that's going to be things like beef, chicken, fish, turkey, eggs, pork. It could also be things like cheese or cottage cheese, dairy products, the milk and the yogurt that you were able to do before, or even your plant products that have proteins such as beans or lentils. You're welcome to add those things in at this time, just as long as they are soft and easy to chew and easy to swallow and digest. So we definitely don't want to be doing any steak or fajita beef, but you're welcome to do ground beef or ground turkey. Tuna fish is also a great soft option that's very quick and easy and on the go. And then if you are doing any of those plant proteins, just make sure that you're introducing those in small quantities at first, maybe no more than 1/3 of a cup, just because they do have that added fiber and that can cause some of the gas and bloating that you might experience after surgery. At this point in time, some people do not tolerate red meat, and so if that's you, if you find that when you have some of the ground beef or shredded meat or anything like that and you're having an upset stomach, go ahead and lay off of the red meat for a little bit and just kind of stick with some of the others like the chicken and the fish. Be sure to avoid anything like potatoes or breads, pasta, crackers, cookies, anything like that we're still avoiding at this time. It's way too soon to reintroduce that. And since you're able to start having protein from food, you can also start backing off on your supplement protein. So things like the protein powders and the protein shakes, you can gradually start decreasing on those as you increase your protein from food. Another little tip here is to make sure that you're not eating and drinking at the same time. So if you can, have your meal, wait 30 minutes, and then you can start drinking. And it's worth noting that most people at this point in time are going to still be dealing with some swelling from the surgery, and then of course your smaller stomach. And so you may not be able to eat just 3 times a day. You may have to eat something about every 2 to 3 hours just to kind of keep your stomach happy. So keep that in mind. If you're only eating once or twice a day and you're starting to feel, maybe nauseated, or you're having a lot of acid reflux, increase the frequency of when you're eating to every 2 to 3 hours. Okay, the next phase of the diet is going to be your soft protein with low fiber. This is going to be weeks 5 through 7 after surgery. So what we're going to be able to add here is some soft fruits and vegetables. For your fruit, we recommend adding in berries only, just because they're naturally very soft but also have a lower sugar content. For your vegetables, anything goes just as long as it's not raw or not crunchy. So you could roast your vegetables, you could steam them, you could incorporate them into something that you're cooking. Just as long as they're not crunchy and they're not hard to get down, you're welcome to have those vegetables. And you really don't need to worry too much about anything that has like a skin or seeds in it. I'm thinking mostly like zucchini or squash, something like that. You're just going to want to make sure that you're chewing those things really well. You may want to be mindful of some of the vegetables that cause increases in gas and bloating. Most commonly, that would be things like broccoli or cauliflower, asparagus. If you're having issues with gas and bloating already, I wouldn't add to that by adding in those vegetables. So you may want to stick with something a little bit more docile like green beans or carrots or something similar. For your starchy vegetables, which is going to be like the potatoes or the sweet potatoes, make sure you're having those in small amounts because they are carbohydrates, and we want to limit your daily intake of carbohydrates to 50 grams. And at this point as well, you still shouldn't be doing any breads, pasta, rice, tortillas, or anything similar to that comes in a package or a bag that's very highly concentrated in carbohydrates and is part of grain. Okay, last phase of your diet is going to be solid foods. So this is going to start week 8. And at this point, pretty much your stomach has healed and you're ready to kind of start testing the limits as far as what is your body going to tolerate. So everybody is a little bit different in kind of how they progress with that. But starting week 8, you can start trying your tougher meats like that steak and the fajita beef. You can also start trying additional fruits besides just the berries. So you could start having a little bit of apple or grapes or peaches or plums. Those would all be okay. And then you could also start having raw vegetables again. Just make sure that you're chewing them really well. And also one thing that you're going to want to see here, if you add something in and just for whatever reason it doesn't sit well with your stomach, doesn't mean that you'll never be able to have it. It just might have been a little bit too soon for your body. So maybe leave it alone for a week and then you can try again. At this point in the diet, your protein portion is probably going to be somewhere between 2 and 3 ounces. If it's a little bit more, that's okay. But some of those tougher meats, like steak, for example, might feel a little bit more heavy in your stomach. So keep that in mind. You may still want to do those softer meats, like the ground beef or ground turkey or fish. Regarding iceberg lettuce, we just like to kind of give a little disclaimer there. It is okay for you to try, but we just noticed that a lot of people do not tolerate iceberg lettuce after surgery, and so we recommend avoiding that vegetable if you can, just to kind of avoid any issues. But if you're one of those people who really likes iceberg lettuce and you want to try it, you're free to. For your grains, so this would be things like breads, pasta, anything similar to that, anything that is one of those processed carbohydrate foods. We want to make sure that you're limiting those. You may not even have room for them at this point in time. In fact, you probably won't. But once you do start incorporating those, you're going to want to limit that to once or twice a week maximum. And again, make sure you're staying under your 50-gram carbohydrate limit for the day. The thing about grains, one of the reasons why we limit them is they do tend to expand very quickly in your stomach. So even just like 3 bites of rice can really make you feel over full. So if you start to introduce those foods into your diet, make sure that you're doing that very slowly and you're not going to overdo it by accident. And then with that expansion in your stomach, kind of one of the negative sides of the grains as well is that because they're expanding very rapidly, they can limit the amount of space we have for other nutrients. And so one thing that we want to make sure of is that when you're having a meal, try to eat your protein first, vegetables second, and then anything that's carbohydrate save for last. That way we make sure you're getting in those important nutrients from the protein and the veggies first. And for a more extensive list on exactly during each phase what you can have, take a look at your nutrition packet. It's laid out for you for each of the different phases, for clear liquid, full liquid, soft proteins, and so on. It has a list, a bulleted list of, okay, here's what is acceptable during this phase. So don't deviate from that. If you deviate, that's where you start having different issues. And if you have a question on any of those things, more than likely it's answered in your packet. So if you don't see a food on the list, that probably means that it's not okay. So just stick regimented with what's on the list. And then once you get to the point where you are adding in a good variety of different foods to your diet, take a look at that food list that's a part of your packet as well. That's going to be a great reference list for what we want you to be eating 80 to 90% of the time. And one thing that you'll notice on there is that there's pretty much nothing that is ultra processed. So things like bread and pasta and tortillas and cereals and oatmeal and all of that, we really don't incorporate that on a regular basis. That's something that you might do, in the 10% of your diet, but on a daily basis, you should pretty much be getting full on your protein, your vegetables, and your fat sources. Okay, just a couple of other general tips for the diet progression after surgery. For that first 2 weeks when you're on the liquids and you're not having anything that's carbonated or caffeinated or with sugar, make sure that you're staying on top of your hydration so that you don't get behind. And if you're starting to experience some nausea or anything similar to that related to dehydration, definitely use some electrolyte powder or one of the Gatorade Zero supplements, something that has those electrolytes in it. You could even add the pink Himalayan salt to your water, something there to just kind of get you a little extra boost. Pedialyte's another option. So you've got plenty of things that you can do during that period to really boost your hydration. So feel free on that. And then also it's worth noting, if you're purchasing things like broth, you do not have to purchase the low sodium option. As well, make sure you get started on your bariatric vitamins during the first 2 weeks after surgery. We'd like for you to start them day 2 or 3, but if you're not feeling quite up to it, you're welcome to wait a little bit longer until you feel ready, but get started on those as soon as you can during that liquid phase. And then just remember, we do want you to get off of your protein supplements as soon as you can. So if you're still doing a protein shake and it's week 8 after your surgery, really make yourself back off on those, because we want you having food sources of protein, because food is always going to be better nutrition than a supplement, but also the food is going to help to keep you fuller and more satisfied for longer. Another thing worth noting is that a lot of people call us and say, I'm freaking out, my weight has not changed, and it's been a week. So this is a very normal process with any type of weight loss, and so we would encourage you, don't pay the most attention to the number on the scale. Make sure that you're tracking other things like your energy levels, your blood pressure. You can track how your clothes are fitting or the inches that you've lost. But it is very common for everybody to experience a stop on the scale whenever you're somewhere between the first 3 and 6 weeks after surgery. So if you get to that point, just know that's normal. It means that your body is adjusting and your metabolism is adjusting, and it just needs a little bit of time to reset. So don't think that you're necessarily doing anything wrong. Make sure you go back to the basics of getting in your protein, your hydration, taking your vitamins, moving your body. As long as you're doing those things and staying consistent, you're going to be well on your way, and the weight's going to continue to come off. But just make sure that when you get to that point, you're not going to psych yourself out and feel like you've messed up the surgery or it didn't work for you. And another common thing that we see around the 3rd or 4th week, whenever you kind of switch off of the liquids and you move to solid foods, calorie intake tends to be pretty low. So just want to kind of set the expectation that in general, for the first few weeks after surgery, your energy levels tend to be a little bit lower than normal, just because you're not getting in the same amount of calories. And so as much as you can, just try to, within the bounds of your surgery, try to increase those calories. Maybe, if you are cooking some type of a protein protein food, make sure you're cooking it in the olive oil, avocado oil, or butter. Once you're able to add in like the cheese and the dairy products, purchase the regular version. Don't purchase the reduced fat. And then incorporate those throughout your day as well to kind of boost those calories. Okay, and that does it for your diet after surgery. So just as a brief reminder, take a look at your handouts. It has everything listed for you as far as what you can do on each phase. My suggestion to you is once you get your surgery date, go through your packet and write down the dates that you're going to be on each different phase so that it makes it super easy for you after surgery. And if anyone is helping you during the recovery process, they can easily pick up that packet and know, okay, here's today, here's what my family member can have, and here's what I can cook for them. So just kind of makes the process simple for everybody. So definitely utilize that handout, and then best of luck on your diet and on your way to a new lifestyle and a new you.